Welcome to the Emerging Civil War podcast. I'm Chris Mikowski, and joining me from Gettysburg, Pennsylvania is Andrew Dalton, Executive Director of the Adams County Historical Society. Andrew, thanks for being with us today.
Thank you, Chris. It's great to be back on the program.
Oh, so glad to have you with us. You've got big doings going on, and I'm excited to have you talk about it. Tell us where you guys are at with this incredible project you're working on with a new museum.
Thanks. So yeah, our museum, it's been years in the making, but it is opening April 15th of this year. It's called Gettysburg Beyond the Battle. And I think we've talked in past conversations just about the content of the museum, but just to remind folks, it's sort of the other side of Gettysburg, the civilian story, the story of what happened before the battle, and the story of what happened after with the recovery. After the soldiers left, of course, you can only imagine how difficult it was for our community to recover and rebuild, and so it really kind of gives you a comprehensive look at the place and the people, starting in actually prehistoric times before there were any people, but going all the way up through the timeline and ending with the modern era and Eisenhower and other topics related to battlefield preservation and commercialism, and but really the bulk of the museum is about the civilian experience during the battle.
Now, I'll be sure to post a link to our first interview where you announced this project. But one of the things that really impressed me when you talked about that was that the collection that you have is far beyond the Battle of Gettysburg. That might be the thing that first comes to people's mind. But you just mentioned a second ago, prehistory. Outline for us just what your collection has and how this new facility will help you show it off.
Well, our collection's over 1 million items. We don't know exactly how many. We've never counted, and it would be pretty time consuming. But we've started collecting historic items in 1888 when the organization was founded. And it was founded by really prominent individuals in the town, including David Wills, who hosted President Lincoln after he gave the night he gave the Gettysburg Address the night before. But we have amassed not only an artifact collection, but also manuscripts and photos and letters and diaries and prints and records of not just Gettysburg, but the entire county. So we're a research entity as well as a museum. In the past, we've really only handled research, and we've had people come in to work on genealogy projects or research a historic home that they own. But now we're really shifting toward doing not just that, but also having a destination for visitors to actually learn the story of Gettysburg and the story of the area. So yes, the collection goes all the way back to dinosaur footprints, and we have a meteorite discovered near Gettysburg in the 1880s. We have incredible Native American artifacts. We have artifacts related to the early European settlers, the Penn family, and then the Revolutionary War, the founding of the town, Thaddeus Stevens and the Underground Railroad. Some people may not know that Thaddeus Stevens began his legal career in Gettysburg and was here for a couple decades practicing law, right in the center of the square where the old courthouse used to be. And then, the story gets into the Civil War period and the battle, and then, continues past it through the World Wars. We have great stories about Dwight D. Eisenhower beginning his military career here in Gettysburg and his test of leadership during the Spanish flu, dealing with an incredible, devastating pandemic running through the camp and through the town. And then we do have a kind of toward the end more on modern history and how Gettysburg has changed and evolved, and how we've grappled with the questions of how to balance efforts to preserve the battlefield and efforts to modernize and have tourist attractions that of course are important for the local economy. But so it's a comprehensive story, and it's backed up by our artifacts. We have over 1,000 artifacts on display in the museum.
Wow, that's incredible. That's incredible. Now, you'll pardon me for patting you on the back here for a second, but I'm going to think that, 50, 100 years down the road, as people are telling the continued story of Adams County, there's going to be something about how Andrew Dalton helped create this fantastic new museum to showcase this history. The work you've done is just been incredible. I think the leadership you've shown in this initiative to kind of bump up the high profile nature of your collection has just been incredible. What a gift to the Historical Society and to the community.
That's really kind of you. I grew up here. It's been an honor to do this, but we started this capital campaign to build this new building with a $5 million goal. We were given the land that we built on. It was actually the Adams County Prison for many years. And then our county commissioners handed it over to us for $1 and gave us another $1 million to build a structure that would be better looking than the old prison. But, we've had support from across the country. We've had donors in almost every state. We've raised $12 million now. We've more than doubled our initial goal. Incredible support from the state of Pennsylvania, from local leaders. It far exceeded what we thought was possible when we began this project. And I think it's nice that the story of Gettysburg as a place will actually be safe, and it can be told. It's remarkable to me that this hasn't been done already, that as a community as famous as ours hasn't developed a place to really tell its own story. And I think for Civil War buffs, this is going to be another side of the battle that you haven't heard before. Maybe you've heard bits and pieces, but to actually understand how this community lived through a catastrophic disaster like the Battle of Gettysburg and came out on the other side of it and became one of the most popular tourist attractions in the country. So it is in itself a really great story. And I think people have recognized the importance of the project, and to save all these artifacts, which were in an old dilapidated Victorian building when we started this campaign. Ken Burns was an early advocate, unbelievable in his generosity to give his time and his voice to helping to spread the word about our project. And he actually visited for a private tour last week. So it's just been phenomenal. And I'm very excited about the museum. I think the collection's incredible. The cause that we have is just really phenomenal, but I think people will really enjoy the museum. It's something very different, and it explores things, I think, in really new ways with some incredible technology and storytelling that hasn't really been done before.
What I really like that you mentioned a second ago was this notion of taking ownership of the community's story and finally being able to tell it in a way that is holistic to the community itself. Tell me a little bit about that, because of course, Gettysburg's story has been owned by a lot of different people. It's been a national story. It's got a lot of myth attached to it. And you're finally taking some ownership of that story in a way that hasn't happened before.
Yeah, it's again, I always just am kind of stunned that it hasn't happened. But I think the battle really has overshadowed our ability to tell our story. Everything, I said this a few days ago, and when Ken was here, but we were talking about kind of the evolving meaning of Gettysburg and how people think about Gettysburg. But really, our story's been defined by what happened to the community, whether it's the battle or Lincoln visiting and giving the Gettysburg Address. But the community's part of it, the people, the ordinary, but extraordinary people who lived through all of it and remembered it and wrote about it and played an active part in it, their stories have never really been given equal footing with, the Lincoln story and the Robert E. Lee story and Reynolds and Hancock. And so I think for a lot of visitors, there has been a big piece missing. And I hope that we can fill that void and really help people connect with the human interest stories that we have. And we've really gone out of our way to make sure that this museum will be appealing to anybody. You don't have to be a resident of Gettysburg or Adams County to enjoy it. We've picked stories that have kind of broad national significance, that were played out on a local scene, on a local stage. But we're talking about the American Revolution and the founding of Gettysburg, which happened around the same time. We're talking about abolition through the context of Thaddeus Stevens kind of getting his roots here, and his involvement with the Underground Railroad. And then when we talk about the Battle of Gettysburg, it's a large section of the museum, but it is all through the eyes and ears of local residents. And we developed this room called Caught in the Crossfire. And I'd say in the museum, I'm most excited about this because it allows you to step inside the home of a local family that is just at the peak of chaos of what's happening outside. The Union Army retreating through the town of Gettysburg, the Confederates capturing a northern town, and all of the fear and chaos that came with that. And you hear the people below you, you hear the family in the cellar below you, you hear the sounds of the battle from around you, you hear the shells whizzing over your head. It's been an incredible effort. I think that part of the museum we've spent the last 6 months really refining. Jeff Shara, who wrote Gods and Generals and The Last Full Measure and many other books, actually wrote the script for this experience. And we've recorded a lot of the sounds using actual cannons and rifles out at a firing range in Virginia. So when you're in there and you hear the bullet going through the glass or hitting the wood next to you or behind you, it's an actual sound that was captured using those real items. So what we tried to be is authentic. I think it's the most authentic you'll get in Gettysburg in terms of actually feeling what the battle might have felt like.
Wow. And you have talked to me before about, your embrace of new technology to help tell the story and bring it to life. And this immersive experience sounds like part of that. What was it like for you as an interpreter and as an administrator to, find these new technologies to help you bring this story to life in such an authentic way?
That's a great question. We had a lot of wonderful help. I'll show a picture of this room, and it's very hard to get a sense of what it's actually like from a photograph because there are 13 speakers built into this room. We used authentic materials. There's solid oak beams running across the top of the room as rafters. There are real wood floors with a sunken basement underneath. We basically fit this room out as best we could to make it look exactly like it would have looked inside the dining room or the living room of a home on the edge of Gettysburg as the battle passes by on the evening of July 1st, 1863. You can see bullet holes in the wall that are illuminated as the program intensifies. But technology has progressed so much with museums, and I think there's more of an emphasis on authenticity and using scenic elements and really putting people inside an atmosphere that feels real. I will say it's so real to the point that we have a content warning on it, and I have already had some veterans who were in combat go through it and express to us how accurate and how, in some cases, how it was even to the point of being very emotional for them to be in this room. It's about 5 minutes that you're in there. And, I would say we had a big debate about how authentic it should be. And a lot of museums, we were told by our museum designer that sometimes there's a big committee working on the museum, and over time it gets watered down a little bit and softened here a little bit and made a little bit more just basically you lose authenticity through the process of seeking input and adding more and more people as collaborators. But I think from the very beginning, we told all of our contractors involved, which included a lighting designer, a sound designer, a fabricator for the museum, a designer for the museum, for the scenic elements inside that room. But I think there were 5 different entities working on this, and the overarching goal the whole time for everybody was, we want this to seem real. We are not trying to pull any punches and make this less intense than it may have been. So I hope that people will get that when they go through the museum and really enjoy it. It's optional. You don't have to go through that part of the museum, but if you want to really kind of spend 4 minutes in the shoes of a local family caught in the middle of the battle, I think that folks will enjoy it.
Wow. Now, with all that kind of emphasis on technology, I know that you go sort of to the other end of the spectrum as well, and where you allow the battlefield to speak to itself. And one of the things I really liked about the original design was, you're placed near Barlow's Knoll. Here it is. And the museum design lends itself to just displaying the battlefield like that. Talk a little bit about your location and how you take advantage of that to enhance and interpret the battlefield.
It's a great location, and if it's okay, I'll show a couple more photos because we worked really hard to kind of use the features surrounding not just right in our immediate vicinity, but around the battlefield to kind of use those to tell the stories inside the museum. We are right on the edge of Barlow's Knoll, which is fantastic. We have, beautiful view of the battlefield, easy access to the battlefield, but we're also kind of right with a lot of other modern buildings on the edge of town, so we're not really sticking out. But it's just, I think it's a reminder that our stories intertwined with the battle. The community story and the story of the battle are inseparable and go together and are meant to be told in tandem. And I'm actually looking out my window right at Barlow's Knoll as we speak, which is an incredible spot to be. It just reminds me of how, these just the museums are one way, I think, to look back into time, and you can do it through reading original accounts. You can do it through, you know, any kind of research and visiting a museum or visiting a historic site. It's just, there's no better way to get closer to history than to kind of absorb yourself in these things. And we tried to do that in the museum. I'll point out just a couple quick examples of that. When you first walk into the museum, you're greeted by a reconstruction of Devil's Den that's about a third the size of the actual rock formation. And then our introductory film actually projects onto the rocks. And this picture doesn't quite do it justice, but it's pretty stunning to see these stories kind of coming to life on the face of Devil's Den. Jake Borrett, the filmmaker, he's well known for the Gettysburg Story and other projects. He made all of the short films through the museum. And we were really excited that Stephen Lang narrated all of them for us. So we went up to New York and had a nice day with him and recorded all these pieces. And his voice is just kind of perfect for the tone of these stories. So that's the first film. And then I think there's another 5 throughout the museum that are very short, but kind of evocative and show the imagery and the people and the stories and help to kind of tie everything together.
Now, is there any truth? Is there
Mhm.
any truth to the rumor with the Devil's Den reconstruction that Tim Smith or Gary Edelman sort of pop out in the background and make cameos?
I will say, I should not say this because someone will try to do it, but I will say that there was a ladder in at one point, and Tim Smith did climb Devil's Den in the museum and sit on top of it. And we have some pretty funny photographs of Tim. I wanted to take the ladder away from him. But we've had some fun with this, and our scenic artists in the museum are phenomenal. I mean, we used 1220 exhibits out of Nashville, Tennessee. And I have to say, they blew us away with the attention to detail. Not only, I mean, we knew we were going to get a rock formation that sort of looked like Devil's Den, but they studied the photographs. Every crack in their actual rock, they made a crack on this one. I mean, it's and the filling in of different areas, it's very, very well done. And they did a lot of scenic work throughout the museum that I think people will enjoy. There's one other picture I wanted to show. Let me see if I can get the right one. That kind of speaks to their the talents with the scenic work that they've done. Some of you may have heard of the Sherfy farm, Joseph Sherfy farm on the southern edge of Gettysburg. It was caught in the middle of some of the most devastating fighting on the second day of the battle. I'm trying to get the picture, but there's a very famous tree on the Sherfy farm that was struck by a cannonball, presumably on the second day of the battle, a solid shot that became lodged in the tree. And our scenic artists actually recreated this photograph. Here's a picture of it. I'm going to zoom in. It'll be hard for people to see, but the original photograph is over on the right. And we actually have the cannonball that is in the photograph, and it's in a small case. But we had them recreate with a real Gettysburg cannonball, the Sherfy tree, and people can touch the cannonball. It is a fake tree, but it is astoundingly real when you walk up to it. And that's in our aftermath section. So I could go on and on about the really great team that we've had here. Every day we've been excited to walk through the museum and notice the differences and the changes, and they're just putting the finishing touches on now. So we're excited to welcome everybody when we open in April.
Wow. Now, over the course of our conversation, I've heard you talk about Ken Burns and Jeff Shara and Stephen Lang. You've had a lot of high-powered A-listers to help you promote this idea. What's it been like to work with such well-known folks?
Very exciting. I've loved history since I was a little kid. And so I've been a fan of all 3 of those folks that I mentioned since I was probably 6 years old. I think Stephen Lang is one of the most talented actors in the business, and his love of Gettysburg is an incredible gift to all of us here. Very few people are as generous with their time, considering the star that he is, especially with of late with the second Avatar coming out. And so we had a great time recording with him. He was just a pleasure to work with. We had a lot of fun. He's a really funny guy. But you can tell that he really loves Gettysburg, and he'll do anything for this place to help out. And so it was easy to get him involved, especially because he's worked a lot with Jake Borrett in the past. Jake was it was an easy ask, and I'm still kind of stunned that it was an easy ask because of how important he is. And but we had fun with Ken Burns. He I have to say, meeting him in person, I was just stunned by his compassion and generosity and his willingness to take his time and go through the museum. He had the first tour of the museum, actually, and we filmed part of it. We'll probably release some of that. But he seemed to really enjoy it, and without his early support of the campaign, we never would have reached a national audience. And again, Jake and his ability to tie this in with the Ken Burns Film Festival, which was recently held in Gettysburg. It was really essential to kind of have to really make Ken's visit special. And so between the museum and the festival, I think it was really great. And Jeff Shera, I still kind of have to pinch myself because I read Gods and Generals when I was in middle school, and I've gotten to know him quite well over the past year. And again, someone who has the audience that he has and has the following and the respect and the talent. I guess still kind of surprised that folks like this are able and willing to help with a project that's started off pretty small, the County Historical Society doing a new museum. But I do think, what we're doing has really resonated with a broader audience, and with the help of those people and many others, I just can't believe that we've gotten this far and we've been able to really, I think, tell this story the way it should be told and it needs to be told.
What's it been like for you as someone who grew up in the area, as a middle school kid who read these books or saw these movies, and now you are literally shaping the landscape in a way that has a huge impact on this story? What's it like for you?
I think it'll take me some time to process that. Right now, we're more focused on, getting the right trash cans ordered for the lobby. But I do think sometimes about how nice it'll be to come back one day, and hopefully this will flourish and be kind of and really fill that void that I think we have filled to tell the rest of the story here. But it really has been amazing. I think I never imagined that we'd get to the point where we'd really just be able to do what we thought needed to be done in terms of the quality of how we're presenting these stories. I already talked about the immersive stuff in the museum, but in addition to that, I walk around our building. We have a large archives and a research room for people to come in and discover, whether it's their history or they're researching any topic related to Gettysburg or the area. I think when I walk into the archives and I see our collection safe with the right climate control and fire protection and security that it's never had, and I do sleep a lot better at night knowing that this is safe. I mean, it is frankly, I think, a miracle that our building did not have some disaster happen before we got everything over here. I didn't put that very well, but we left work every night wondering if there was going to be a building and there was going to be a collection the next day. And I mean, we're holding on to the entire preserved story of Gettysburg, a million plus items. It's not just paper and artifacts. It is any topic related to Gettysburg that has a history is here with us, with the exception of the stories of the soldiers in the battle, which are kept very well at the visitor center. But this is the story of this place. And there's no other entity that preserves that collection. It is us. It's our responsibility. And I think I'm most proud of being able to walk into that archives and be thankful that we made it, and this collection made it, and that it'll be here for many, many years for people to enjoy and to learn from and understand, and to get it transcribed and digitized, which it hasn't really been put into a format where it actually is completely safe. So we have the room to do that, and the staff and volunteers to do that, so that this history is never lost. And a lot of people wonder, well, why did we build here? Or why did we not get an existing structure in Gettysburg? Why did we not, take over Boyd's Bears or some other structure or some other building? This was our best option. It was handed to us with $1 million gift. and we could not afford to wait another day to get out of there. And so I hope people will come and see it and enjoy what we've created. There's a lot of work to be done still, but I'm very proud of our very small staff and our volunteers that have made it happen, and all the supporters across the country. We've had thousands of people donate to make this happen.
Yeah. And you know, you and I have talked about that. You know, the museum is the forward public facing aspect of this project, but preserving those priceless artifacts and those priceless records, which is something that I know has kept you up at night. That's a huge benefit to this whole project, and perhaps the most important component, even though we might get to see kind of the fancy interpretive stuff, that the preservation of those records is vital.
Oh, yes. And the museum will really, I think, allow us to continue to have the resources that we need to do that preservation work. You know, there's a lot of museums, especially in Gettysburg, but I think with the exception of the Visitor Center and the Gettysburg Foundation, we're the only organization that really has a mission of preservation of not just all the documents and artifacts, but we're holding the story of Gettysburg, and everything that we're able to do with the museum, with generating support through the museum, through our programs, it will go right back into making sure that these resources are protected. So it's very, it's a real responsibility, but at the same time, it's a privilege, and also makes it easy for us, I think, to continue to do what we do, because people realize that by visiting the museum, or visiting our gift shop or a program or a tour, that is going toward making sure that this is all safe.
And I just want to back you up on a second too, when you talked about why didn't you do this or why didn't you do that, take over this. And I just absolutely have to commend the fact that you guys chose a place that is easy to access, that shows off and interprets the battlefield in a highly effective way. I'm just so pleased and proud of what you guys have done in that respect. So for those naysayers, I say poo poo to you.
Well, thank you. And we are going to be very responsible stewards of this property, and I think it's a great location. It's a little less than a mile north of Gettysburg, of the town square. We're right on the edge of town, right next to the Gettysburg College athletic fields, and there's a nursing home and the Ag Center, and HAC, the community college, Harrisburg Area Community College, right around us too. So it's a great place for us to be. Lots of education around us, lots of places to go, and places to walk, and of course you can walk right onto the battlefield from where we are. So it's a great home for us. It's fitting that it's the county property that's been Adams County's land for as long as the deeds go back. So I think it is fitting, and we're just very excited to open in April 15th, that weekend. There are tickets available on our website now. And they're already going pretty quick. So that's exciting. If you want to be here for the grand opening weekend, you can still get some tickets, but we'll be open from that date forward 5 days a week, and also planning some big stuff too for the 160th anniversary of the battle, and the 30th anniversary of the movie Gettysburg, which are both this year.
That's right. So, of course, with the timeline ticking down to opening, I'm sure there are still some things that you guys need to wrap up. How can people still support this project?
Thank you for asking that. If you go to our website, there's two ways to get to it. One is just achs-pa.org. You can donate there. We are always looking for support. We are still taking donations to pay for the project through April 15th. So you can give to our capital campaign, or you can just give an unrestricted operating gift to help us with all the other things that we're trying to do in a short period of time, to get all of our educational programs up and running, to prepare for all the groups that'll be visiting schools. Especially all of our local students are going to have free admission to the museum. So if you donate, it'll support that as well, and preserving the collection and continuing to take new artifacts and new donations into the collection, which we are still, every week there's something new coming through the door. So that's very, very, very kind of you to consider supporting us. You can also go to gettysburgbeyondthebattle.org, and that's our website for the museum.
So, Andrew, anything I haven't asked you that I should have that you want people to know before you get opened?
Wow, I will do one more plug. We have our changing exhibit gallery in the lobby of the building, which is totally free. That'll open April 15th, and that'll be that exhibit will feature the private photographic collection of William A. Frassinito.
Oh,
It's never been on display before. He has some of the rarest Civil War photographs in existence, including an original photograph of Lincoln at Gettysburg on the day of the Gettysburg Address, which has never been seen except for in his book. So I hope you'll come out and see that. They're rare original photographs on display, and that'll be free for at least a year, probably a couple of years in our building in the lobby. And we're very, very excited about that. I know for Civil War buffs, that's going to be a fun thing to come and see.
wow. He is a legend in the field. So to be able to actually see his photograph collection firsthand is an incredible treat for those of us who are Civil War buffs. Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. And we also have a smaller exhibit for just probably the next 6 months. It's a loan of from Ken Burns with all of the some of the items he used to create the Civil War series, including the camera he used to film his Civil War series, and that's on display in our lobby. So you'll have to stop by and see those things, even if you have just a few minutes in Gettysburg on your next trip.
Wow. April 15th is the big day. Tickets are available now. Sign up. Please make a donation. Help support this fantastic effort to tell the story of Adams County. So, Andrew, I appreciate your time to chat today. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Chris. It's fun.
So, best of luck to you. I know you've got a lot to do between now and the grand opening. I wish you the best of luck.
Thank you. We'll see you all soon.
I'm Chris Mikowski. Thanks for joining us here for the Emerging Civil War podcast. We will see you online at the Adams County Historical Society and on the battlefield.